Hi there, it's Amy from Cakes with Faces and welcome back to my series about my never-ending Japan wishlist. I make these videos to introduce cities and areas of Japan that are less well known that you might not have heard of. To me, it seems like we always hear about the same places in Japan, Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, but there's so many other amazing places that you might want to go to, but you just never hear about them. Today is all about Shikoku, which is the main island of Japan that's least visited by tourists, and to me that makes it all the more intriguing. It's got some quite remote areas and I've heard it's a lot less touched by tourism than other areas of Japan. Now there's lots to do there, and so this video isn't hours long. I'm going to focus on just one of its prefectures. The name Shikoku means 4 provinces because it's made up of 4 prefectures, and today I'm going to focus on just one of them, Kochi prefecture, which is this large prefecture along the southwest of the island. First I'm going to show you what there is to do there, and then after that there'll be how to get there and how to get around, and that's going to include some special trains, so if you're a fan of Japanese trains, stick around for that. I actually couldn't believe how many there are just in Kochi. There's new Japan videos on my channel every other Thursday if you want to subscribe, and if you're also dreaming of Japan, there's lots of ideas for things to do and help with planning your trip, whenever it may be, in my book. You can get it from cakeswithfaces.co.uk with worldwide shipping. First, Shikoku has lots of amazing natural scenery, and we're going to start with the Shimanto River, which has really clear water and some stunning landscapes. It's known for these bridges called chinkabashi, which are submersible bridges. They don't have any fences along the sides, so if they go underwater they don't get damaged by debris like fallen trees coming along. And apparently the local kids have lots of fun jumping off the sides into the water. You can do lots of activities at the Shimanto River, as well as just swimming and paddling. You can go canoeing, stand-up paddleboarding, you can go on a boat trip on a traditional boat called a yakata bune. You can zip line across the river, or you can hire bikes and just enjoy cycling along. They all look like great ways to take in the scenery. There's quite a few places that offer these activities, and there's also quite a few campsites if you want to stay out in the countryside. This was something someone asked me about a while ago. Quite a few of the campsites do offer rentals, so you can hire a tent and a sleeping bag and all the camping equipment you need, so you don't have to take it with you and use up your entire baggage allowance with your camping equipment. If you're there in April or May, you might see the carp streamers up across the river. They're called koi no bori, and they're for Children's Day. They symbolise how parents want their children to grow up brave and strong, just like carp swimming upstream. I saw them once at Haneda Airport. I'm sure it's a lot better at the river though. Apparently there's around 500 of them at the Shimanto River. I don't know if that's all in one place or spread across the whole river, but either way it'd be a great sight to see. Next, I've got 2 unusual museums for you. The first is the Kappa Museum. A kappa is a yokai, that's a Japanese monster. They have a beak, a plate on their head and a turtle shell, and they're said to like cucumbers. This museum is dedicated to them with 600 sculptures and pieces of artwork all about kappa. Even the building's pretty unusual. It looks really quirky, like something from a fairy tale. About 5 minutes away from that is the Kyoto Hobby Museum Shimanto, which is in another unusual building, really colourful. It has about 5,000 models, figures, collector's kits and comics. To me it looks a lot like Nakano Broadway, which is a mall in Tokyo where you can buy all sorts of collectibles, and I'm sure you'd spot all sorts of things here. This museum is actually in an abandoned school. Now you hear about these rural places in Japan where the population decreases because people get older, the younger people move out, and you get these abandoned schools and houses. So here they turned the school into a museum to revitalise the area and encourage people to visit. In fact, elsewhere in Kochi there's another abandoned school that's been turned into an aquarium. Now, there must be a cheesy joke about a school of fish in there somewhere. Next, Yuzu Road. Now, a lot of citrus fruit is grown in Shikoku, not just oranges, lemons and limes, but also Japanese varieties of fruits like yuzu and sudachi, and my favourite, the decapon, just because I like the name. Decapon. Kochi is the place where they grow the most yuzu in all of Japan. Yuzu is a citrus fruit that's a bit like a lemon but with less of a sour flavour. It's really delicious. If you like them too, you might want to go on a pilgrimage to a place called Yuzu Road. It used to be a railroad for the logging industry, and the road was used for transporting timber. But as the industry declined, they planted yuzu orchards there instead, and now it's known as Yuzu Road. If you go in early summer, you can see all the blossoms, and then in autumn, when the fruit ripens, the air smells of yuzu, which must be so nice. And then there's festivals for the yuzu harvest. There's various railroads you can go on in the forest, like this really steep one so you can go up and see the view. And of course, as it's the local speciality, there are lots of foods with yuzu. There's a factory tour where you can see a place where they make yuzu drinks. And I'm sure you can find yuzu products just everywhere in the area. Drinks, jams and sweets, and yuzu kosho, which is a condiment made with yuzu and fresh chilies. You can get it as a paste at Asian food shops. I always have to have some in the house because it is so delicious, and it'd be great to try the fresh, authentic version. And you can get a local version of inaka sushi. Inaka means countryside, so countryside sushi, and they make it with vegetables and tofu instead of fish. In Kochi, they use yuzu juice instead of vinegar for the rice seasoning, which sounds really delicious. I'd love to try it. If you can't get to Shikoku on your trip, but you want to try the yuzu treats, there is a shop in Tokyo that sells them. It's in Ginza. It's called an antenna shop. There are also other antennae shops that sell regional specialities from other areas. This one in Ginza is called Marigoto Kochi. As well as lots of regional specialities, it has 100 yuzu products from Kochi, which definitely puts it on my to-visit list. Upstairs, above the shop, there's a restaurant called Tosa Dining Okiyaku, which serves up regional specialities. At the moment, they have a takeaway bento box with that inaka sushi with the yuzu juice, so I hope they keep that on the menu. Next is the Niyodo River. Like the Shimanto River earlier, it's known for its beautiful clear water, and this one has the best water quality in all of Japan. It's nicknamed the Miraculous Clear Stream. The colour is known as Niyodo Blue. The best place to see it is at a place called Nikobuchi, where there's a waterfall going into a pool. It's said to be a natural power spot. There's lots of places to go hiking through gorges, and there's lots of activities, just like at the Shimanto River. At this Niyodo Adventure Centre, they can take you canyoning, abseiling down cliffs, rafting on rapids, and all sorts of things. Now, I don't know which is better, the Shimanto River or the Niyodo River, so if you've been to either of them, tell us about them in the comments. Next, it's time for some seaside and Katsurahama Beach. This is close to Kochi City, which is the main city of the prefecture, which might be where you're staying. It's a lovely sandy beach. You can't go swimming, but it looks like a lovely place for walking. And there's trails around the woods behind the beach. It's really scenic with this small shrine on the rocks. Another area of the coast in Kochi is Tatsukushi Marine Park. This one seems quite tropical with coral and tropical fish. You can go and see them all on a boat trip in a glass-bottomed boat. There's also an underwater observatory where you go across a bridge and into a tower. You go downstairs under the water and you can see all the fish and anything else that happens to be swimming by. Sometimes you can spot turtles and rays. Like many areas of Japan, Kochi has lots of mountains and hills, which means that even sloped areas have to be used for farming. And that's why you get terraced rice fields, which just look so picturesque. One of them is Yoshinobu Rice Terrace. That one has an observation deck opposite, so you can get the best view of all the terraces. It's called Oishi Observation Deck, although it's only got one eye, so it's not really Oishi Observation Deck, like delicious observation deck. That one is quite into the countryside, so it might be a bit tricky to get there on public transport. There's also Kainokawa terraced rice fields. At this one, the original farmers got too old to look after it anymore. This is a problem in Japan with the ageing population, and sometimes rice fields get abandoned, just like those schools from earlier. At this one, the community got together and now they all look after the rice fields together. To keep the community spirit going, they have a festival every year in October. About 5,000 lanterns are placed all around the rice terraces to create a magical landscape. The lanterns are all made by the community. Everyone collects 2-litre drinks bottles, cuts them in half, and then puts a candle inside. So it's so simple, but just really effective. It reminds me of the Snow Light Path Festival in Otaru in Hokkaido, where the displays were also relatively simple and small compared to the giant snow sculptures in Sapporo, but they were really effective and just made with love by all the volunteers, and it made for just a really nice experience. Now, this might not be something you think of doing in Japan, but you can go whale watching in Kochi prefecture. The water's really clear and they take you out on a boat trip. They say you have a 90% chance of seeing a whale or a dolphin. It doesn't run all year round. You can go between April and September, and the best time is from July onwards. There's various other tours and boat trips as well. Some of them include a seafood barbecue, and there's one that I like the sound of where you go out at sunset to see the sea aurora. They call them sea fireflies. They're tiny bioluminescent creatures in the water. I would love to see this. This one's only on between April and August. So that's just a selection of things to do. There's loads of other things as well. I haven't even mentioned the 88 temple pilgrimage around Shikoku or any of the things to do in Kochi city, which also has a castle. So if you have any recommendations, share them in the comments. Next, how to get to Kochi. To get to Kochi from Tokyo with a Japan Rail Pass, it's 4 hours on the Shinkansen from Tokyo to Okayama, and then after that it's 2.5 hours on a limited express train to Kochi, so it is quite a long trip. If you want to break up the trip, you could stay somewhere along the way, or you could go and stay somewhere else in Shikoku as well. From Osaka or Kyoto, it's 1 hour to Okayama on the Shinkansen, and then that 2.5 hours on the limited express train. Or you could get an internal flight to Kochi city, which might work out better if you're not getting a Japan Rail Pass. Next, how to get around Shikoku. Some of these areas are quite remote and Shikoku is quite mountainous, so the trains don't cover the whole island. So people do say it's easier to get around if you rent a car and drive. Personally, I'm not a big fan of driving. I don't enjoy it, and especially when I'm on a trip, I prefer to take the train. It just feels like more of an adventure. So if I went, I'd probably try and get around on the train and bus anyway, even though driving's easier. And I wouldn't want to miss out on these fantastic trains in Kochi. I couldn't believe there were so many. There's a train that's decorated to look like the Shinkansen, the bullet train, even though it's just a regular local train. They call it Japan's slowest Shinkansen. There's this very fancy train that's supposed to evoke the feeling of being both in the past and in the future. Interesting. There's a train with kappa, that's those yokai monsters from earlier. They're not just painted on the outside, there's even a kappa family inside the train. There's a scenic sightseeing train that runs along the Shimanto River. One of the carriages is open air. And a seaside train that runs along the coast with an observation deck and cute characters on the outside. And an Anpanman train. Just look at that rainbow interior, it's so much fun. Next, rail passes. Now, to save money, instead of getting a Japan Rail Pass for the whole of Japan when you might not need it, you can get one that's just for Shikoku. It's called the All Shikoku Rail Pass. It's valid not just on JR lines, but also other trains and trams and some ferries. You can choose how many days you want it for. Of course, it's not valid for anything outside of Shikoku, so if you're flying into Tokyo or Osaka, you'll need to budget in getting from there to Shikoku, and then you can start using the pass. And if, like me, you're not a big fan of driving, shikokurailwaytrip.com has lots of ideas for itineraries going around just on the train. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you can see why I want to go to Shikoku and Kochi prefecture. Maybe I'll do another video about the other prefectures in Shikoku. They have lots of interesting things as well, especially Tokushima, that's got a lot of interesting places. It'd just be great to see another side of Japan and all that amazing scenery, especially around those rivers and all those yuzu treats. Tell me what you think in the comments, and I'll see you not next week, but the week after on Thursday. Bye bye.